I'm now joined by Ben Esposito, creator of Neon White, my number one top game of last year. That was probably the highlight of your life.
I was not expecting that, I'll say.
It's a top game. So what was the original idea behind that one?
The idea was that we wanted to make a fast-paced first-person platformer, and it wasn't meant to be a shooter, like a boomer shooter or anything. We really wanted to make it all about the platforming and have a little puzzle aspect. And we wanted to also focus on level design, because a lot of games now focus on like procedural generation or like even roguelike structures, and we wanted like to hyper focus on the concept of a level and mastering that level.
Sure. Were there any specific influences? Because it really brought to mind a sort of classic era of like Quake speedrunning, you know?
Yeah, we wanted to we took a little inspiration from like old school games like Quake and Half-Life, and like that Source engine movement where it feels a little bit rigid and robotic, but precise. And so we didn't want to have a lot of, we didn't want it to be too dynamic in terms of like how fast you can go. We want it to feel like really rigid so you can master it and feel like you know exactly how fast you're going at all times. But in terms of games, one of the bigger inspirations is a game called Jumping Flash for PlayStation 1, because that is like the original first-person platformer, and it's about collecting stuff, but we picked up a lot from the items that you pick up and stuff like that, so we kind of structured it a little bit like that game.
I think everyone's going to have their own game it most reminds them of. I used to play a mod for Quake called Slide Quake, where they removed friction, so the faster you went, the more you stood on slopes.
That sounds really good.
And that really came to mind for me. Yeah, I think you've really nailed a really solid core gameplay loop, which is one of my favorite styles of game design. So, what's next?
I think we're gonna do something in the same realm. It might not be another Neon White, but we wanted to explore more of that 3D platforming, because doing good 3D platforming is really, really hard. And it requires you kind of like building your whole game and your whole world around just that one element. So we're gonna experiment more, I think, with like, more fast-paced platforming stuff.
That'd be interesting to see. Ben Esposito, thank you very much.